All right. Sorry about that. I haven't streamed in so long. I had to dust off the equipment, get everything set up. Anyway, I wanted to react to this because I'm a big fan of Unnatural History channel for the ecology content he does for Monster Hunter, and this vid of his popped up in my feed. This came out like a couple of years ago, I think, and I think I watched it then, but I have not seen it since then. So I wanted to go back and look because I think I'm pretty interested in Monster Hunter's ecology, or at least I was. Recently, it's kind of gone all over the place, so I haven't really been too interested in it. But I'm trying to just remember back when I did care about it. So I wanted to check out the video, see what he has to say. I'm gonna start it up here in a second. Well, actually, here let's wait till some people get in the chat first. I guess while I wait for some people to fill up the chat, I can just kind of talk. I haven't really streamed anything in quite a while. I've been super busy. Can't really find the time to at least play anything on stream or react to anything. And I'm about to be even busier this part of the year. So I figured, hey, I said I'd in the Discord. I said I'd be streaming at some point. So I'm going ahead and doing that now. Um, as far as maybe some future stuff, I'm thinking the Elden Ring uh special edition's coming out soon. I might stream that because I love Elden Ring and I've always wanted to stream it. And I think it's gonna be the perfect time to. So I'm probably gonna be doing that. Uh, what rate I'm gonna be doing that at? I have no idea. I think it comes out maybe next week or a week after that. But I'm not gonna like spam it. I'm gonna stream it slowly. Anyway, if you're in the chat, go ahead and shout out. I think I got some people here. Sarah's, what's going on, man? You should play Monster Hunter 1. How you gonna come in here, Sarah's, and immediately be on some bullshit? Monster Hunter 1, bro. First gen is a museum exhibit, bro. You don't play it, you just sit there and look at it. Also, I don't even know if I have time to like play that. Like, I'll give as much shit as we give like new gen for being like super, you know, streamlined or whatever. Really, really old gen, like Gen 1 and 2, that is a time sink unless you have like good RNG, you know? That is a time sink, and I'm not in the mood for that. That's the thing. That's why I'm honestly always. I'm always up for stuff being on the modern hardware because I really do want to play that kind of stuff, but it's got to be on modern hardware, and it's got to be like relatively recent. Like if they do port stuff like 3U, 4U, I'm all for that. Second gen, like I've done it. I've played. I didn't finish, Freedom Unite, but I did play through it quite a bit through high rank. Just because I mean that was I was playing back on like a terrible a terrible laptop. It wasn't running well. It wasn't all that fun, but I do blame the hardware more than the game. So attacking with the control stick, Sarah, as you know good and well, if I emulated that game, I would not be doing that. Yeah, and I think you're right. Like, because Monster Hunter, I know Freedom Unite is glazed, and for its time, it was really cool. Like, there's no denying that. But it's definitely we've definitely improved since then. Like in terms of content, the game is perfectly fine. It's just the actual gameplay is kind of It's definitely you definitely get peak enjoyment out of that game with a full four-player, group, and you're playing really really often, so you're able to grind it out. That's at its best. Trying to solo play that, nah, I'll pass on that. Anyway, all right. I see Saros is in here. There's somebody else in here besides you. I wonder who that is. But we can go ahead and start soon. Oh man, it's been storming outside all day. It should be fine though. It's really far past. All right, let's go ahead and get into the stream topic. So, if you're a part of one of the discords that I'm a part of, you should know this monster is one that's talked about a whole lot, and it's hardly ever for positive reasons. At least people who are me. Um, the whole thing is about like ecology and you know how certain monsters are represented in the series. Like for me, let me give my standpoint. Right, I think ecology is one of the most interesting parts about Monster Hunter, like as a concept. Like you have these fantasy dragons and fantasy animals, but they're seen and treated the same way you would treat like real life stuff. So like instead of having magic powers, they got biology and shit going on. You know, and I think that is an important aspect that distinguishes Monster Hunter from literally every other series that's similar to it. So for me, yeah, a monster that's got a lot of good ecology. It's important. It really helps me to buy into the world, buy into what's happening. You know, and kind of the contention point is that some of these newer monsters that are coming out, they're kind of skirting the line. They're kind of skirting the line of what's believable, and not even just believable, but just like suspending your disbelief. You know, because I mean, obviously, if you get like obviously, Arathlos couldn't fly in real life because of physics, weight, whatever. That's whatever. But it's saying if it was real, how would it operate? You know, and I think that's the cool part. So some of the newer monsters who I won't name, but some of them, Capcom and the devs have kind of been going fast and loose with it. I think they're prioritizing boss fight design over ecology and all of that. So, and then you say that, and then people will be like, "Well, what about Nergigante? You know, one of the most popular monsters that there is. It's I mean, well, actually, it's not even just its believability; it's kind of everything about it. Like, I think Nergigante is probably the number one if somebody doesn't like something about, you know, anything that's like recent, any monster that's recent or whatever, somebody will immediately go to Nergigante for like one of any number of things. Its design, what it does, its lore, that kind of thing. And I think honestly, I like Nergigante a lot, and I think it does a pretty good job for what it's supposed to be doing. Like it's not my favorite monster, but it is, I guess, one of my favorite Elder Dragons. I'm usually not a big Elder Dragon guy in general. That's the thing. Like if you look at my top 10, which look someday I'll make, I will make a stream someday about that when I get the chance. But usually Elder Dragons aren't my favorite. I am much more of a Wyvern person. I think those are just more. I like fighting those more. I enjoy their ecology and lore more. Elder Dragons, they're cool, and they have, when done right, their lore can be really cool. But I just prefer Wyverns. But for Elder Dragons, Nergi is up there. I like the idea of, well, most Elder Dragons have like these elemental powers, and they stand above everything else in terms of like the world, the ecology, and they kind of just do their own thing. And I think what's interesting with the world is they decided we're going to bring Elder Dragons more into the fold of like how things work. Like Elder Dragons, they kind of just had free reign before. They can kind of do whatever they want. And they kind of were like, they kind of ignore certain laws of the jungle. You know what I'm saying? But what they did with Nergigante is they said, okay, we got all of these super powerful animals that are, you know, sitting there basically doing whatever they want, not really following the rules. What if we had something to actually check them, you know? And not like a Fatalis, because everybody knows Fatalis is, the strongest and all that stuff. But he's super far removed. He's not going around just like, you know, chewing up Volcanas and stuff, because he's more of a human focused antagonist. But what if we had a monster that was on the level of the Elder Dragons that also was the one who was checking their populations, like something for them to fear? And I think that concept is something that's really cool. And Nergigante is that. He's essentially like what Devil Joe is, but instead of for wyverns, he's for all the dragons. And, of course, he's like, okay, I think people are kind of like, okay, when it came out, wait a second, so this dragon is supposed to be, stronger or better than my elder dragon. It's like, well, not really that. You can still like it. You can still like yours better, but just for the sake of, this monster is something that is a checkmate to other elder dragons. Gives it some more. Okay, like Kushala can't just do whatever he wants. If Nergigante shows up, it's, oh, wait a second. this thing is actually going to try to kill and eat me. You know, like I'm not. It's not free real estate. And yeah, I think that's just a pretty sick idea. And then I think, unfortunately, though, is that by design makes people like you can't really say this thing is stronger than that without pissing somebody off. That's kind of just how it is. And all the Elder Dragons, they don't really they don't really mess with each other like that, you know? Like they're not really hostile towards each other on a regular basis, so they're not gonna like yeah, they might like turf war, but there's no like I'm not out to kill you or anything like that. So this kind of adds in a new element to that. But some people were not rocking with the idea that hey, this guy's put on the planet to, check your guy. Which I think is weird, right? Nargacuga is one of my favorite monsters, and that dude for flagships is like low tier. Like Rathalos is putting the hands on Nargacuga and going even with him. You know, like Narga, he's not beating a Tigrex. He's not beating a Glavenus. He's not beating, like definitely not beating. It's like Brachydios. None of those. Like he has his own thing that he does, and he's not trying to sit there and mog everybody because he's not supposed to. He does his thing. He's a swift, secretive monster who's fast, has his role, and that's cool. So I'm fine with saying like, yeah, if Tigrex rolls up, he's putting Nargacuga through the ringer. Nargacuga has to run away from him. But yeah, I think that's cool. But some people, they say that you're like, oh, well, that's not fair. My monster should be able to face that monster, beat him, and like yeah, that's cool for like as a character thing. But in terms of believability, like what's this ecosystem where everything can just kind of stalemate each other? There's got to be a hierarchy. Anyway, yeah. So we're watching this, reacting to this. I haven't seen this in so long. Learn a bit about what some of the intentions for Nergigante are. Maybe clear up some misconceptions or whatever. And from what I remember, this guy on Natural History Channel, he does cover some of the canon content, but he also does speculation as well, which I think is good because some people, it seems, really don't like to think super hard. They don't like to use any critical thinking or whatever. They just say, oh, well, I don't like the way that sounds, so I don't believe in it or whatever. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. Guys in the chat, I see you're talking. My bad. I kind of went on a tangent. But yeah, Arkveld is yeah. I mean, it's definitely a fight. Arkveld was a fight. It's not the worst thing in the world as a fight. I see what they're doing, the chain blades and whatever. But we can talk more about him later. I'm sure he'll be relevant. All right, then. Let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to try pausing to speak so I'm not talking over what he's saying. So let's get into it.
Eater of Elders, flagship of world, and the second most popular monster to date, Nergigante was certainly made to be a big deal. And his dietary habits, fight, and methods of reproduction definitely make him so. So let's explore in greater detail.
All right.
Perhaps the best place to start is the spikes. There has been much said about them, especially with their role in Nergigante's reproduction. So let's see what the book actually says. And the fairly minimal text only says that when exposed to nutrients, egg cells in the spike began to divide. And that's the summary of the concrete evidence they have for Nergigante using spikes for reproduction. But from a Doylist perspective, Fujioka does add that Nergigante canonically has asexual reproduction. And this isn't so unusual, but rather several normal things that become unusual when combined. Having runaway reproductive organs is seen in other animals too, and the Argonaut octopus has a detachable hectocotylus that can stay with the female for prolonged periods until its mating time. Rather, it's the fact that Nergigante does this in an asexual fashion without a partner. But, as said, it does seem that it can't just deposit spines anywhere, and have them grow into clones of itself. They have to be exposed to a major nutrient store for growth to begin, and stabbing your genetic material into something also isn't unheard of. Many species reproduce in a process known as traumatic insemination. Bedbugs and sea slugs are very well known for this, with the males having spear-like genitals that they stab their females with to mate. Sea slugs in particular are hermaphrodites, with the acting male stabbing the partner to fertilise their tissues, with certain stab points apparently being more fertile than others. But they're also capable of self-fertilising themselves as well. With acting males seemingly laying clutches of eggs, they can then fertilise ostensibly by stabbing themselves as well. So maybe this is where Nergigante's origins lie too. Originally, the belligerent dragons would violently wrestle, with the winner implanting spines in the loser to inseminate them for sexual reproduction. As time passed, this eventually turned into self-fertilization, and the asexual reproduction Nergigante is known for today. Rather than inseminating a partner, the self-fertilized spines are implanted in a nutrient-dense meal to help their growth until they presumably hatch. One thing that remains unclear is how this change happened across the species. Whether
Here,
they
let me pause there. I think I think a Natural History Channel. I think the way he presents his information, I think I'll kind of just have to pick spots to pause at random because he kind of just lists everything off, and it is a lot. Like it's a lot at once. So I'll just be pausing at random to add anything. Um, what I really do like about his content, though, and I think is so cool, he is like one of the big ecology guys on YouTube for Monster Hunter. I know there's other ones like Oceaniz and whatnot, but I think what this guy's specialty is that he gets into like the analogous science that is like part of it, and I think that's so cool because it's like it really gives you a new appreciation for the devs. They really did think of all this stuff, and I think that's pretty cool. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into it again.
are actually multiple strains, for want of a better word, of Nergigante that split from multiple individuals in a breeding population.
Oh, I see a chat. Nergigante coming out of an egg in stories. Bro, stories just be showing how not canon it is. The Fang Beasts come out of eggs in stories, bro. That is definitely just a game mechanic. Like you had Soul Seer coming out already blind. But yeah, that definitely a funny idea.
Or if asexual individuals outcompeted sexual individuals until there was very little diversity between the clones themselves. So like many species, Nergigante can reproduce via parthenogenesis, essentially virgin births. On one hand, this is quicker and easier, as in theory you don't need to wait for a partner or woo one when in season, as you can just clone yourself whenever. But it also comes with obvious drawbacks on a population and evolutionary
yes
level.
or no in yes or no in chat. Do y'all want subtitles on? They kind of just have been on this whole time. Are y'all cool with that? Or do you want them off? There's not so many of y'all in here. I might decide for you. All right. I'm going to turn them off. And if you really want them back on, let me know. Okay? Okay, let's go.
Is obviously a lack in genetic diversity, if you're just derived entirely from clones of one or a few individuals. This makes you especially vulnerable to changes in the landscape, and outbreaks of disease too. Considering with a curio we now know elders aren't immune to all pathogens that can affect wyverns too, Nergigante may be especially at risk of such outbreaks that could threaten to wipe out the population. And Nergigante may deal with this by not dealing with it. If they're constantly leaving spikes everywhere, then even if a small portion of these develop successfully into adults, then the species may effectively have future reserves of themselves banked and ready to recover after catastrophic events that may wipe out an adult population.
I think that is honestly sick. Like, to touch on the whole cloning thing. There's animals in real life that do that, and I think it's interesting they picked that for Nergigante because if you think about it, Nergigante is like the apex predator of elder dragons. It sits at like the top of the food chain. So I think having it where like he's extremely rare. He produces in a way that's not really. You don't want a whole bunch of Nergigantes at once, you know. So like having it to be where if there's like 50 Kushalas, make sure there's like one Nergigante. So it's like that Nergigante is like he can like eat a Kushala, but there aren't that many Kushalas, so you don't need a bunch of Nergigantes. So instead of having them just like laying an egg, after a long time, you can just have them growing out of these spikes. And I think that's an interesting way to do it.
And this isn't totally unheard of either. Labord's chameleon spend most of their existence as embryos. On hatching, they reach sexual maturity in a few months, mate, lay their own eggs, and then die. If a population
Yeah, see, here we go. This happens in real life too, where you can spend, like, so the spike would spend a whole lot of time just as a spike, and then under the right circumstances, it becomes an Nergigante. Chat says, yeah, imagine a hunter bringing a Nergigante spike back and it grows into one. Yeah, that'd be crazy. That's like the same thing, like the whole Fatalis armor turns into a actual Fatalis.
is considered as reproductively mature adults, then for several months of the year, Labord's chameleon render themselves completely extinct, except for their developing embryos. This is more believed to be a response to harsh environments. But for Nergigante, it could be a similar strategy of having dormant, long-developing young to overcome population crashes brought on by a lack of genetic diversity. Similarly, it's also possible Nergigante may be able to change back. Parthenogenesis isn't that solid a game plan for various reasons, and can often result in extinction if it becomes the obligate method of reproduction over a quick fix. But in rare cases, some species that do so will actually change back to sexual reproduction. Despite beliefs that this would be impossible, parthenogenic animals can also sometimes more obviously retain the ability to produce
Yeah, I know the Fatalis thing has been messed with. Although I'm not gonna lie, after seeing how Wilds is handling things, I believe they'll probably bring that whole armor thing back based upon how Zoshia works, because Zoshia can grow back from nothing essentially. So I'm sure they'll bring that back.
functioning males too. So Nergigante may go through various evolutionary phases of sexual and asexual reproduction depending on numbers, the environment, and other selective pressures acting on them at the time. Nergigante's habit of leaving spikes everywhere may stem from opportunistically attempting to set its seed wherever possible. But it may be that only certain targets or areas are sufficient for successful reproduction. It's not known what stage the young would hatch from the spikes, and so what food source would be sufficient for them to grow from. So whether the Baroth killed by Nergigante could be a sufficient nest or not remains to be seen. In theory, if areas of high bioenergy can be accessed by wyverns too, then spikes implanted in certain areas like the Elder's Recess should be able to passively grow, albeit perhaps at a slower rate.
Yo, so Sarah, that's basically what you're talking about. So like any old Nergigante spike isn't guaranteed to turn into a Nergigante. Like isn't guaranteed to, have the cells that turn into Nergigante. It's basically got to be the right conditions. So essentially, like he can lay a whole lot of spikes everywhere, but that doesn't mean they're all going to become one. It's only certain ones at certain times. And I think that also helps keep the population within reason.
Presumably the spikes and embryos within lack the invulnerability of the adults, or the rotten veil would be littered with spikes and essentially be the ideal breeding ground. It seems fair to assume the effluvium would erode or suffocate the embryos before a sufficient growth stage.
The safety of our communities comes first.
Ads.
That's why Don Davis is leading the charge to pass a bill to stop fentanyl at the border, working across the aisle to secure the border and protect our communities. Tell Don Davis, keep fighting to pass the Catch Fentanyl Act.
I don't know how Little Caesars brought the pizza deal back.
I think I can just mute ads from now on. That'd be sick.
Val's domain. The guild also suggests that Zora wasn't just being targeted by the Nergigante in the story for food, but for its young as well. There would be no target more rich in biomass, bioenergy, and nutrients than
Oh!
Zora Magdaros itself, and Nergigante could probably litter its body with spikes while still alive to grow a superior crop of strong young multiple times over.
Yo, see? That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. So I know a lot of the criticisms for this monster are stuff like that. Like, oh, why is he attacking Zora? It's like there's like Nergigante feeds on like the bioenergy, you know? You don't have to like Zora is so big, you don't have to, you know, kill him in order to start eating him, you know? And if the whole spikes thing where you can set the spikes inside of the Zora, they can grow into more Nergigante. So like there's reasons for him to actually be doing that. It's not like I know some people treat it like, oh, he's gonna just run up and just kill Zora, you know, because that's like tier two thinking, you know, like we should be on like tier five where, okay, he's a predator of elder dragons who feeds off their bioenergy. This giant elder dragon, who's like obviously you can't sit there and just eat him in one bite. This giant elder dragon has teamed with bioenergy. Let me either eat some of him while he's still alive, or I can, you know, like put my spikes on him and have them grow into some Nergigantes. You know? That's what I'm saying. Like, ecology is such like a deep concept, and some people really try to like just make it so surface level.
Dead, it would still provide a superior farm for its young. Certain elders may provide ideal estates for Nergigante to bear young in. Shara Ishvalda may be another such target, and the ruiner Nergigante fought in Iceborne's story seemed keen on trying this elder over other prey, presumably for the same reason. It could also be possible that Ruiner first headed over to the New World with intent to catch up to Zora and failed, or did after Zora left the main storyline and died, and then began to pursue Shara afterwards as well.
Right. That's the thing. Okay, we can go ahead and talk about this. This is the other big thing, the whole Ruiner Shara debacle. It's people are saying that like Ruiner only went after Shara because we had already beaten it up and it was weak. Like that's that tier two thinking again. Like, oh well, I want Nergigante to seem really meek, so I'm gonna take that situation and take it out of context. Bro, Nergigante was already there on the scene when the hunter got there. You think he knows the hunter is gonna show up and beat the Shara? No, waiting for he was sitting there ready for Shara to surface for his turn. You know? Like these monsters don't operate with, oh yeah, let the hunter do the work and then I'm gonna go. It's he probably was there with his own intentions to do it. Now you could take your own thing to say, oh well, could he get through, Shara's rocks and whatever? And I mean that's honestly up to your interpretation, but the idea is, yeah, he's still there to take on Shara. That is the whole point of that.
Elder dragons may also provide sufficient acreage in this regard too. A beached Seadeus, Nakakos or Daimoralis, anything along the lines of Gogmazios, Geismagorm, Leo Shanlung, Yamatsukami, or even the rarity of the black dragons or the Jivas.
In terms of the chat saying that the rock armor's too tough, he did. Shara Isvalda took Nergigante when Nergigante was knocked out and buried him, under the ground, because that's something that Shara does. He buries things under the ground. Nergi woke up, after recovering, regenerating from what the hunter did, and he bursts out of the rocks, and the rocks go flying. I don't think that rock armor is too much, especially for metal spikes. Like, I mean, I think we talk more about this later, but I know Ruiner Nergigante isn't like from a gameplay perspective or whatever. It's a pretty mediocre variant. Like it's kind of just Nergigante with metal spikes. It doesn't really do anything too differently, and that's its own thing. But in terms of like ecology, from my perspective, it's like Ruiner is essentially a Nergigante that is, he's older and whatever. He is designed to take on even stronger elder dragons than the regular one. So you would say Nergigantes, they're taking on stuff like Teostra Kushala, right? Ruiner is then going after stuff like Shara Valda. Like, the stronger monster is needed for the stronger prey.
May provide an unparalleled feast for Nergigante to recreate itself. At these key events, multiple Nergigante may well come into contact with each other. If they had a sexual phase in their evolution, then once upon a time this may have been a key event for socialization, and possibly mating. In other top predators believed to be mostly solitary like great white sharks, whale carcasses have been suggested as social arenas that mature individuals may gather.
That is some crazy art, by the way. Hold up. uh, but I do think that is also, look, don't get too crazy about that art. I think he's talking about great white sharks and how they gather on like whale carcasses. I think this is the same thing where like Safi is dead and Nergigante then shows up at the corpse. But like um in the other situation where yeah, it's not guaranteed. Just like in in nature and wherever where it's not like guaranteed that a predator takes out the prey. It isn't the predators like, if there is like a whole fight between them, it is in the predator's favor. Usually the prey runs away or whatever or does something like that. But yeah, I'm not saying it's like it's guaranteed that Nergi would take him down, like for first try at least. But I think that's the whole point of the regeneration. He is designed to fight them, take a whole lot of damage, and then if he doesn't win, I mean, like he's a hunter, he can come back a little bit later and keep going at it, you know. And you still are a predator in that case, where you can wear something down through endurance. So yeah. Anyway, let's see what he's talking about with these.
At pre-mating. However, in their asexual phases, they presumably only result in combat, with Nergigante being presumably unwilling to share their treasures with anyone else. The horns, which often seem unused against other opponents, and which are often intraspecific weapons over interspecific ones, may also come into play here as well. The large and bulbous horns curve backwards over the body, and seem best adapted to fencing or ramming, with Nergigante often fighting by rearing up and throwing its weight around in body slams. It does seem possible that they engage in ramming contests with one another where they butt horns. This may seem bizarrely restrained compared to the usual mauling opponents receive, but if the case, it could just be a holdover.
I mean, again, yeah, it's true that, like, again, it's still a fight. That's the thing. He's not like any of these high level elder dragons that a Nergigante would fight. They're not like, he's not just gonna cakewalk them, but that's the point. The monster isn't designed for that. Like, he's covered in, regenerating spikes. He regenerates. That is his big thing. Where in fights of endurance, that's what gives him the edge. And like Ruiner, he has giant metal spikes, like to pierce stuff like Shara's rocks, you know? Like, because clearly the rocks can be worn down. And also, the biggest thing about Shara is that he cannot use his strongest abilities while in rock form. That's, I think, something that people forget. He can't use the giant, uh, it's not wind, it's like vibration. He can't use those attacks while in rock form. He needs to shed that so he can do that. So essentially, Shara is kind of just like a big slow moving target who can kind of swat at Nergi a little bit and whatever. He can eat a lot of damage, but he's not going to be able to have much offensive capability. You know, if he wants to use these giant, you know, these giant blasts and whatever, he's got to get rid of the rocks. And when he does, you know, his attack power goes way up, but his defense is lower. You know. So like I think they do a pretty good job of making this seem possible, you know. It's not like, oh, he's just got plot armor. It's like they have ways to make it so that yeah, something like this could take on a final boss level monster like um Shara.
But from prior to developing asexual reproduction, males, or acting males, or just everyone, could have established strength prior to mating with such headbutting. The behavioural instinct on seeing other Nergigante may still be to fight, but with the past pre-mating displays of strength that have not yet been shed, much like the horns themselves. On a similar note, Nergigante often rearing up in combat shows its surprisingly colourful underbelly. The reason for such a flamboyant display is unknown, but like the horns, it may be something of an evolutionary leftover.
Yeah, that is true, Saros. Yeah, those blasts. If you are smaller and you can get out of the way, like he can definitely monsters should be able to get away from that. Unless you're like a big slow target, like say if Char was fighting something similar size, like say Gog. Gog has to eat all of those blasts. That is for sure. Gog is not fast enough to get out of the way of anything. So for monsters like that, they've got to brawl, but you know, Nergi could still dodge all of those attacks.
As well. In other species with brightly coloured bellies, this is also for intraspecific reasons, communicating either sex or aggression to others of their own kind. Again, denoting anything to anyone outside of a punch to the face isn't really Nergigante's style, but this display would pair well with a form of ritualised combat that involved a lot of rearing up at one another. The bright colours may have signalled a fight was about to break out, as a last chance to back down, or to show the one initiating was dead set on combat. Whilst many elders have minimal sexual dimorphism, many of these traits in Nergigante do seem to be rare sexually dimorphic traits seen in other elders too. So we could suggest that when taking up asexual breeding, most of the hermaphrodite Nergigante population became set as acting males, albeit ones able to self-fertilise like the sea slugs. For what it's worth, some scholars do refer to Nergigante in the story as a he. The male traits may have allowed them to outcompete remaining subordinate individuals or acting females, and clone themselves, until that potentially becomes unviable.
Ain't no harm in wandering.
Now we wait. There we go. Oh, turf war, let's go.
Speculation appear to have a minimal role in subjugating prey. Instances of conflict against other elder dragons, and flying wyverns, brute wyverns, and fanged beasts, all show Nergigante tend to rear up and grapple opponents with the spike-free ventral surfaces in contact with the opponent, with Nergigante only once using them offensively when it took down the wounded Shara Ishvalda. But
here, let me we're about to get that in a second. We'll run that back in a second, those turf wars, but I just want to talk about what he just said. Like when not with let's see, let's go back a little bit. Let's go right here. Where Nergi's big thing, right, compared to these other elder dragons like Teostra, Velkhana, his thing is he is physically stronger than them. Which means in close quarters combat, he's going to overpower them, which allows him to get, like, the win. They need to rely on whatever element they have to either get him off of them or to stave him off, which is, again, why he has his regeneration. So, like, his design is made for that interaction to happen, you know? And I think that's really cool. Like, if he was something like Like we'll get to Rajang later, but Rajang's whole thing is he's punching up. Rajang is punching up, you know, where he is a monster that's like close to Elder Dragons, like, you know, in terms of like what he can do, but he's not like one of them. So he has no crazy defenses or whatever. He goes in swinging, but the Elder Dragons can hit him just as hard back, and he takes a lot of damage. You know, 'cause he's aggressive. He's just angry. He wants to fight. Nergi is there not just to throw hands. He's there for a meal. You know, so he's built to actually take them on like that and not risk death every single time.
Speculation appear to have a minimal role in subjugating
Yeah,
prey.
overpowers Teostra,
Instances of
yeets
conflict
him.
against other elder dragons and flying
Velkhana
wyverns, brood
immediately,
wyverns, and fanged
you cannot get
beasts
close. He's immediately
all show
down,
Nergigante
and then you gotta push him
tend to
away
rear up and grapple
with
opponents
wind.
with a spike-free
This right here, him fighting Devil Joe. I think this is a Basil Goose carcass, but him being able to overpower a Devil Joe
surfaces in contact with the opponent, with Nergigante only
Like,
once using them offensively when it
yeah.
took down the wounded Shara-ish.
like that whole thing is like in all of the other Devil Joe turf wars, it needs to be like a beam struggle, and like Nergi is able to actually contest with him physically and then overpower him, which I think just shows, you know, that he means business. And like Rajang does the same thing, but they even have a little difference in their turf war where Nergi's actually like able to like push against him.
Grapple opponents with a spike.
See, look, yeah, he has to push. He puts him down for a second. Then Devil Joe grabs him, and then Nergigante locks in, pulls open the jaw, slams him.
But it is eating
All right.
other elder dragons that makes Nergigante so famous, although it isn't exclusively elders it lives on.
Yeah, Sarah's. Yeah, that right there. Shara's whole thing is he has the rock armor. That is his defense. When it comes to actually like hand-to-hand combat, Nergi's able to kind of just run into him, bowl him over, and then start going to town. He's tearing at him. He's all this. Like, this feels like a very intentional interaction. Like, this extra strong, extra tough Nergigante is designed for doing stuff like this.
Nergigante is a rare carnivorous elder, and will opportunistically take any monster it can overpower as food, but whilst showing a clear preference for elders. This crucial difference seems to be akin to the difference between starvation and malnourishment. One is from an overall deficit in caloric energetic intake needed to continue life, and the other is a lack of key nutrients and minerals needed for body processes.
And I think this is what makes this so cool as well. I know some people are like, well, how come Nergigante is eating other stuff besides Elder Dragons? Why is he eating like basil, you know, and killing Baroth? It's like, again, that's that tier 2 thinking. Go to tier 5. Use some more cognitive skills. Elder Dragons are rare. He can't always eat elders because they're rare. You know, he can't always have them available. So he eats other things. He still needs to get the Elder Dragons because that's part of what he needs. But he can eat other things in the meantime, you know?
So one can still die of malnourishment on a full stomach. Any faunal life may suffice for Nergigante to keep starvation at bay, but it requires other elder dragons for key properties to prevent malnutrition from its expensive
Against
spike
Basil.
growth. And this is often a key reason for taking dangerous prey, of which other elders certainly are.
True.
Sometimes predators will risk their lives preferentially selecting for potentially lethal game, because it has qualities they need other prey items don't. In a similar vein, male lions will often select for Cape
Holy!
buffalo, their most dangerous
Whoa!
prey item.
I forgot about this. This art he has in here. This guy he commissioned, I think, to make these. I'm gonna screenshot that. That is sick. And probably what would happen. I'm not gonna lie. Like Nergigante against Shigaru. Like I give the edge to Nergi. Like I think Shigaru is probably the closest of the Elder Dragons that are of that tier to Nergi in like physical strength. But yeah, I think I still give the edge to Nergi there. But that is sick. Basil should not be counted. Okay, I will go off on that tangent real quick. Basil was introduced as an elder level monster, and that's true. I think the difference is that Basil really didn't get the kind of glaze that Devil Joe and Jang got. Like he's treated, he is like elder level, but he's not. Basil isn't like overpowered. His whole thing is he has his bombs that blow up. They're really good defense, really good offense. He can bully things that are lower than him, but his powers aren't so insane that he can just, you know, fight straight up with things that are on his level. And I mean, it happens all the time. He gets beat up by everything. Like, I'm not really even gonna count Nergigante because obviously he would get bodied by him. But like, even in like Rise, Magnum Malo is able to easily take down Devil Joe or not Devil Joe, Basil because I'm assuming he's resistant to his blast attacks, I guess. But he gets the same treatment Rathalos does. When you would think that maybe he should do a bit better than that. And like Rajang actually has the only like sensible fight with Basil because Rajang has no defense, so Basil's bombs work on him. But yeah, Basil definitely, I'd say he's the weakest, I guess, of the elder level monsters because they don't go out of their way to glaze him, and they keep him. He has flaws, he's flawed. He's not allowed to just be completely broken in every situation because he doesn't need to be. He is like a little side thing. I think Basil has some of my favorite ecology. He's a carpet bomber. He bullies low tier monsters. He goes up, blows everything up, and he comes down and just eats. That's his thing. You see Basil coming, you run, everything blows up. He doesn't really have to fight you usually. So when Devil Joe shows up, Basil kind of gets ragdolled. Like he did not killed because the bombs protect him, but yeah, that's his niche. I think that's so cool.
Does only buffalo have enough meat to keep a coalition fed, healthy, and growing for a minimal amount of hunts? For Nergigante, it's the bioenergy. Presumably, a single feeding event to satiation is enough to last a Nergigante for a while.
Yeah.
Considering with the apparently low numbers of elders, feeding exclusively on them for bioenergy and calories.
I just want to say, like, it's been a while since I've watched one of his videos. This is why I like ecology so much. Like, this stuff is so interesting, and the fact they have, like, what other series do you know that treats its monsters like this? That's why it's so good, man. Sorry, let me keep going.
Would be unsustainable for their populations. Some have theorized that Nergigante only takes elders weakened by the migration of the elder crossing,
Okay.
or ones entering senescence. And whilst
I've
these
heard
may be
that.
cropped disproportionately due to being easier to catch, a general rule many predators follow, in areas like the recess it seems elders can quickly recuperate to regain full strength again. It seems there's a resident population of Kushala Daora too, and as said last time, the fire lions will also breed in the New World as well. So clearly there's a comparative abundance of prey in the New World, and much of it likely being elders in good condition too. Rather, Nergigante may rely on the elder crossing because prey can be reliably intercepted, and essentially always found at that time. Nergigante apparently evolved in the Old World, and only comes over for the elder crossings when it can reliably track its normally elusive prey. In recent crossings, it seems Nergigante may have developed migratory coupling, when predators follow their prey and essentially migrate alongside them. This can result in top-down effects on ecosystems, which is seen when Nergigante's presence upsets the other elders, and causes them to flee the recess. It's
Bro. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, you gotta think a little bit harder about this. I know, and I know people are watching. I know you've heard people say, "Oh, well, Nergigante, he's a vulture. He's he's a vulture. He only goes after weakened elder dragons. The Elder Crossing. That's what he's doing." And it's like, yeah, that's funny if you want to, downplay it. But think about it. the monster again started in the old world, following the monsters over. He has all of these adaptations designed for fighting them straight up. Like if he was a scavenger, he wouldn't need regeneration and all that kind of stuff. He wouldn't need all that. He's designed for fighting them straight up, overpowering them, killing them, and eating them. And in the new world, elder dragons straight up live there. They're not all just weak about to die. Like he rolls up to full health elder dragons. And I know in the story of world and what we see, yes, the Teostra was injured. We don't know how. It just was. It could totally be where Nergigante is the one who started fighting him in the first place. Got him low health anyway. And Shara, again, Nergi was there in the first place, ready to fight him. It's just that hunters beat up Nergigante and get in the way, and then they do it. But like, yeah, I think just to say that he only goes after these weakened elders, like, yeah, then if you think that, then you will be confused why he's supposed to be that strong. You're doing it to yourself, you know? And I think it just does a disservice. That's my thing. I feel like I'll get to this more later on, but like I think like kind of taking the idea of what they're presenting for Nergigante and kind of diminishing it for the sake of, well, he can't really be that strong if XYZ. You're doing a disservice to the ecology, you know? You're not really, you know, immersing yourself in what's going on. You're just trying to, put it off. So, yeah, let's continue.
It's unclear how often this happens, as whilst Nergigante have been recorded hunting elders in past crossings, the elder displacement out of the recess doesn't seem to be regarded as normal. The curious impacts of Xeno'jiva, believed to be responsible for the more and greater elder crossings, may have prompted this behavioural change in Nergigante, and thus the chaotic top-down effects of elder displacement too.
And that's the thing. If you want to talk about what the story tells you, the story of world, the other elder dragons straight up run from Nergigante. Not the ones that are dying, the ones that are just chilling there in the Elder's Recess. They sense Nergigante is coming and they're out of there. They do not want to deal with him because he's not just going to fight them for territory, he's going to try to kill them and eat them.
Competitively, this carnivorous diet means Nergigante has little overlap with most other elders, and much more with predatory wyverns, and this may well explain some of the hostile interactions it's seen to have in-game.
Like, what other monster do you know that does this? Like, Rajang eats Kieran Horn, that's about it, and that's so specific. But like, yeah, that's his role. He is unique and he does that. Like, they have a monster that is in the role of taking on these elder dragons when most other monsters don't do that, and not for like just, fighting territory. He's there to put a limit on the population, Like, he is the answer to that. Which I think is sick. I think it's a sick idea they decided to do that,
Devil Joe and Basil Juice are both seen to fight with it.
Oh, yeah.
And as large dominant carnivores that would both be successful scavengers and kleptoparasites, they may well contest Nergigante at both its own kills, and the rare instances of giant elders dying too, as well as
true.
viewing each other as potential prey as well. This also applies to Rajang, but there is...
Oh, Rajang, we'll get to this in a second. Hey, Mako, what's up? What is it? You missed it. If you're just joining now. He has like some art that I think he commissioned for like to show things, but yeah, like Nergigante tackling a Shigaru, I'm pretty sure that's how that would go. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but Shigaru was probably the second closest to Nergi in terms of like muscles, physical strength. So I'm sure he would definitely wrestle him. But Nergigante still has like the advantage in that, But speaking of muscles, we're talking about Rajang, so let's go.
Some competitive overlap here as well. If Nergigante will preferentially eat Kirin, as it will any other elder, then it's taking an important and rare resource Rajang need. There is some similarity in that both need elder dragons to sustain their unusual abilities, although there is more pressure on Rajang as it can only attain what it needs from one species. It's in a Rajang's best interest to try and displace Nergigante, so it can hopefully keep Kirin in the area to itself, and also not have to travel further to find them if Kirin react to Nergigante similarly to other elders.
Bro, oh man, that's so cool. So like, yeah, that is such a cool like ecological thing. It's like, okay, why would Rajang fight a Nergigante? You know, what's the reason? Nergi does not care what kind of elder dragons is eating. He's gonna eat whatever. Rajang, he needs Kirin. He needs that for his source of power. He's gotta try to do something about Nergigante. Nergigante's gonna sit there and eat up all his stuff. He's gotta try to fight him. Even if he doesn't have to like, he doesn't have to win, but he has to like maybe discourage him, get him away, something. And you know, and maybe Nergi can decide, okay, this monkey's kind of annoying. You know, I'll leave the area. But yeah, like in like a straight up, you know, brawl, if like Nergigante actually wants him done, you know, like you saw in that turf war. Let me go back. Hey, here we
As
go.
well.
Let's see.
This also applies to Rajang.
Yeah,
There is some
gets on top of
competitive
him.
overlap here as
Nergigante,
well.
get off me,
If
get off me.
Nergigante
Power
will
up.
preferentially eat
Uppercut.
Kirin,
Oh yes, like
as
that?
it
Let me
will
show
any
you how it's
other
done.
elder, then it's taking an important and rare resource Rajang need. There is some similarity in that both need elder dragons to sustain their unusual abilities, although there is more pressure on Rajang as it can only attain what it needs from one species.
You know, quickly touch on Rajang like that. I know there's a thing about like overhyping Rajang and whatnot. That there is definitely a precedent for that. But what I will say is if people, you know, if they think a little bit deeper about what is trying to be communicated through that with the ecology, Rajang is like he's not out here preying on, you know, Kushalas, Teostras. He's not trying to eat them, but he is aggressive. He punches up. You know, he will go. Like he's the what do you call it? The honey badger. He will go fight these things that are stronger than him. And that's his whole thing. You know, so his hype is yeah, he is a regular Fang beast, but he's strong. He's gonna try to fight these things. He's gonna try to do that, and he's you know, and he maybe he won't win, but he will be you know cool enough to actually challenge them. And I think that's the appeal of Rajang. You know, he doesn't have to beat them, but he can contest them. So like, yeah, he doesn't sit there and just beat every Elder Dragon, obviously not. But I think it's cool that he even tries, you know?
It's in a Rajang's best interest to try and displace Nergigante.
And again, he has reasons
so it can
here.
hopefully keep Kirin in the area to itself, and also not have to travel further to find them if Kirin react to Nergigante similarly to other elders.
True.
So there is an element of intrigued predation here as well, when Nergigante tries to capture a Rajang. It could also be that Rajang that have eaten Kirin horns could have some of the bioenergy needed found in other elders too.
Oh, bro. Well, that's such a good point. Like, if Rajang takes Kirin power, wouldn't he also be a source of that energy for Nergigante? So it's like, okay, wait a second. You know, you're sitting here challenging me, but you kind of got the same stuff Kirin got. So I don't see why I can't eat you too.
Not that other elders can't give as good as they get, though, with many individuals providing at least some resistance in frontal combat. On top of this, many unusual elder abilities may also be to kill Nergigante in its crib, literally.
Yeah, and this is the big thing. Like Nergigante is completely busted, and it's you know all this. That's not using the like people try to like you know like take them as characters where this character is just so completely broken and overpowered it's not fair, whatever. It's like it's not free for Nergigante. He has the advantage. That is just how it is. If you are betting on who would win in a 1v1 fight, yeah, you would probably bet on Nergigante. He has the advantages that, he can use to take out the other monster, the other Elder Dragons, like your Teostras, your Velcanas, all that kind of stuff like that. But it's not like they can just, it's not easy. He has regeneration, for crying out loud. He needs to use that. These monsters are going to hit him hard, because they're still Elder Dragons. It's not diminishing their power. I think that's the cool thing about Nergigante. He doesn't diminish the power of other Elder Dragons. He respects them by showing that you need to be so insane that you have regeneration and its extreme durability and resistance to negate their powers and take them out.
The flame auras and dander of the fire lions, Chameleos' poison, Namael's effects on the local humidity and electricity, Velcana's frostiness. These often needless abilities may be to kill Nergigante's spikes before they can grow into an adult monster.
Oh,
ostensibly,
true.
the spikes are nowhere near as resilient as the parents, and can be destroyed with just blunt force trauma too.
Yo, good point. Like, I'm sure the other Elder Dragons know Nergigante is a problem. We don't want him around. He is a threat to us. They see Nergigante spikes, they're crushing him. They don't want any Nergigantes around, So they will do what they can to prevent having this happen where you gotta fight him straight up. Like Maka, what is it? You're in here in the chat. You know what this is just like, right? This is exactly like what Alatreon does to Safi'jiiva eggs. It's the same thing where, I really don't want to fight that thing as an adult straight up. So, let me go over there and take out all of his eggs. Same concept. And see, it appears multiple times. It's consistent. Because, yeah, like in, reality, you're competing. You would do whatever it takes to, like, not have to put up with the enemy monster, enemy animal.
But the assorted auras and localized effects could be to clear out an area of the spikes, much as aggressive prey will kill ultrashell young of their predators. Another potential leg up Nergigante may have over other elders could be its mutation rate. The spikes of Ruiner, known technically as iron spikes, are harder, sharper, and more durable, which is apparently due to a mutation.
Okay, I think maybe we're getting into Ruiner now. Oh yeah, Sarah's spawn camping. Listen. Yes, for agenda purposes, yes, that is Alatreon looking mighty sus. But from ecology, that's the brilliant part. Safi'jiiva is one of the only things on the planet that can contest Alatreon. So if this man is spawning over here in the Guiding Lands, let me go stomp him out before I gotta deal with him. Because, yeah, maybe he can't beat Safi in a straight up fight. So instead of that, he's gonna just go take out Safi's eggs. So yeah, it does make the monster look a little bit. He ain't perfect. He ain't about that action, but from a biology standpoint, perfectly valid.
Mutation in that specimen of Nergigante. On one hand, it could be that every Nergigante is a latent ruiner waiting to transform if they all descended from similar genetic stock. Or it could be that in response to its asexual reproduction phase, Nergigante have frequent mutations in the regenerative tissues of their spines that also function as their reproductive areas too. In Ruiner itself, this may also represent a form of terminal investment, essentially the behavioural or physiological changes that occur when animals enter senescence, and drastically increase their actions for successful reproductive output, doing so with behaviours that can sometimes become risky, as each brood is viewed potentially as their last. Ruiners are typically old individuals, and the iron spikes aren't just normal regrowths, but also occur as it feels its life may be threatened, to the point of even deliberately breaking the first crop of spikes to regrow iron spikes instead. The advantages of this are that it gives it better armaments against opponents, and that the reproductive spikes will be tougher and more durable too.
Yo, like, that is, bro, that's so cool, bro. Like, yeah, okay. We were talking earlier about Ruiner and like, yeah, mid variant, whatever, that's cool. But from an ecology perspective, what is it? It's a Nergigante that is responding to the need to take on tougher opponents like Shara, so it grows these stronger spikes. Like, think of it like this. Say normal Nergigante can't get the job done. You know, he's not able to take out like Shara's Volda, you know, but this older, experienced Nergigante, like a mutation occurs that allows him to do this. It gives him the boost to do that. It puts him on a higher level where he can then match, you know, which is cool because like there aren't any other Elder Dragon. Again, we did talk about the Black Dragons a little bit. Again, they're not usually going around killing, eating stuff for fun or for like because they need to. But yeah, these final bosses are kind of out here running around like your Sharas, your Xenojivas, you know, your Geismagorms. They're running around here. They're also uncontested. So what do you do when you have some dude tearing up your ecosystem? Well, you got to have a countermeasure, and that's Ruiner.
It either makes Ruiner more likely to succeed in its fight, or it gives the Throne Spikes better chances if Ruiner kills its opponent, but still succumbs to its own wounds anyway. This may seem like a lot for the Hunter, but it's worth remembering the Hunter started the fight with Ruiner and was never their target. The Ruiner in the story was presumably after Shara Ishvalda, who would be a huge and potentially risky payout for a senescent Ruiner, who may have been searching for the biggest payout available for potentially its final crop of spines, which it would naturally make Iron Spikes to give them the best chance as it views them as its last output. The benefits of this mutation in creating a superior crop of possibly final young, or helping to do
Oh wait,
so,
what did that
may be
say?
creating a superior crop of
I should stress here this doesn't mean Ruiner thinks it'll die or fail. But okay, so like yeah, it doesn't mean oh I'm going to die. Let me get rid of my last things. But you know I am facing the strongest things I can possibly face. I need this in order to you know be able to still you know reproduce and serve my role.
possibly final young, or helping to do so, may be what fixes such a mutation in a population. A lot of this, and the ideas of mutation, may not sound too unusual, but it could be for what we know about Elder Dragons. Mutations are rare, and alternate forms they take are much more often brought on by environmental stimuli like risen elders, over much variation in the
Bro, this art, bro. How much art is there of this? Like, I don't remember a lot of these arts from World. Like, these look definitely like World promotional arts, but these are sick.
actual base dragon. As very long-lived animals with slow life histories that have been around for millennia, it wouldn't be surprising that, like with other beings with these traits, they had very slow rates of mutation. Whilst this isn't bad per se, it does mean you can struggle to adjust to changing conditions. It's tempting to say elders are the changing conditions, or that they make them, but this clearly isn't true outside of a minor role, as many of them have clear preferences in their biotic and abiotic surroundings that they can't just recreate in any environment on a whim. But this isn't all elders, and elders aren't a monolith. Shagaru Magala may reproduce via spores, but this action still produces a lot of potential offspring, even if only a small handful take a long time to mature.
Yeah, same as
So long
Nergi.
as Shagaru is continually reproducing though, it can maintain a fairly constant flow of offspring.
Oh, speaking of Shagaru, somebody in chat is saying for me to watch one of those. That can definitely happen. Yeah. What I might do is I'm not really in a rush now. I would say I might check out how long is this video? We're about halfway through. I could get through this. I could potentially look at another Nergi. I know there's other people like Oceaniz who have videos on them. I make this the Nergi stream, but maybe at a different stream we can do a different monster. Okay. Let me know in chat if you want to see another ecology video from somebody else like Oceaniz for Nergi.
Spring over its lifetime. So it seems certain elders, through direct interactions, higher fecundity, and differing life history traits, may have a competitive leg up on others of their kind, and wyverns and other beasts may only increase this pressure too.
Patient data can be compromised with wireless
And mute. And skip.
Show either species,
Oh, Lord.
subspecies, or individual
Bro,
forms
oh Kushala,
that can
how they done you
rival and
dirty.
directly dominate, even predate elders too.
Actually, hold on. Let me
Most
rewind.
wyverns and species may only increase this pressure
What he's saying is pretty important.
Increasing discoveries show either species, subspecies, or individual forms that can rival and directly dominate, even predate elders too.
True.
Most wyverns are much more fecund and with faster life history traits than any elder, and yet are capable of matching elders directly in hostile interactions.
Yep.
They can easily replace their numbers should
Kushala
they
getting his
lose,
ass beat.
which they increasingly don't. Yet many elders seemingly can't say the same. Caught ultimately fighting a war on two fronts against opponents of equal strength,
Oh,
but
brother.
who are better
Here
able
goes
to
this.
replenish their troops, some elders may have a bleak evolutionary future. And this isn't unusual. When talking about competition and certain families replacing others, the rivals can often come from within. 2 waves of tyrannosaurs colonized North America, with the second wave outcompeting the first and then giving rise to Tyrannosaurus. The Borophagine canids, after displacing the Hesperocyanid canids, were themselves pushed out by other carnivores, but
Teostra,
especially
bro.
modern cursorial canids. Some elders may just
Not
be
like
able
that,
to roll with the
Teostra. Not
punches
like
better,
that. You should be able
as
to eat
well
that.
as landing them. So now is as good a time as any to say my videos aren't canon. This is all just out-of-universe speculation, so on and so forth. But in regards to that final point, before we move on to discussing Nerg itself, I think it's worth a talk about elders as a whole,
Okay.
and how the different directors do them and how it's changed.
How long does that go?
And I don't hate elders, despite the allegations, but with that said...
I would say, since this is about Nergi, what do you think, chat? Should I skip to the part where he goes back into Nergi, or watch the whole elders part? Because this is a Nergigante stream. I think he does a little tangent right here. See what you say. Because if we do skip it, we can go to another video. And I'll give you a chance to say so. I'll let it play while you decide.
If you take a lot of their lore at face value, it's very, very hard to view them as successful and evolutionary sound species, and not ones essentially living on borrowed time. The original 3 of Kirin, Laoshan, and Fatalis were inaccessible without online play, and so a fair chunk never wound up even seeing them in first gen.
I mean,
But
yeah.
they essentially played a role chiefly
That's
in
been
the
asking the whole
endgame of
grenade
first gen,
thing.
with Fatalis being the final boss, and the other
I
two
just feel
typically
like
coming after most of the
blowing him
Wyverns.
up with
But the DOS elders were
fire
more accessible, and apparently people didn't
just
take
feels a little
very
bit
well
off,
to them
you
in the
know?
Japanese fanbase at the time.
Like, it's not
Apparently
like
being viewed as too
it's
hard
not
and
like
poorly fitting
it's
with the game.
Fatalis.
But it does seem Fujioka
If Fatalis
took said
starts
comments to
burning
heart,
things,
and he was
Teostra
made
getting
very
cooked,
aware
but
of the reception to DOS.
Espinas?
Third gen, then,
I don't
didn't
know.
have any new jobber elders. Only endgame final bosses in Seidius, Amatsu, and Diamorales. Presumably, Fujioka took it that people didn't mind elders being far removed as endgame bosses, and that role in the game gave them some refuge as more fantastical monsters. In 4th gen, Gore and Shagru are still as, or even more impactful, but are so in a much more grounded and natural way, that does feel more congruent with Monster Hunter's world. They don't have their unexplained auras or vague weather effects, Spreading dragon rabies is a much more fitting way of ecological
Okay, I think this is kind of a tangent. He's talking about all elders. I'm just gonna skip to the Nergigante section. We can do other elders other days or other monsters. All right.
I wasn't sure how much I had to say on Nerg analysis-wise too when initially writing this. Let us have a breakdown of Nerg and his role as world and how well he fits in it.
Okay.
First off, how well does Nerg succeed as the Eater of Elders? Some have scoffed at this, partly from just generally
He said some. It's a lot of people actually. Maybe still like the minority, but a lot. People hate this dude.
not liking it, and some not really buying it either in the context of the design and the story. And the fact that we never see Nerg kill another Elder until Ruiner takes out Shara, or find half-eaten Elders on the map, like with dead monsters prior to Geismagorm, and that Nerg is fought before the other Elders in the story, and some of the Admiral's dialogue, all don't really help his case here. The Turf Wars are good, and far less filleted.
Yeah. Like, that is true, and I get that 100%. You know, like yeah, in the actual story, we don't get to see him do all the things that he's supposed to be able to do. 100% valid. My issue with this is that like 90% of monsters, you don't get to see the things that they say that they do on screen. Like it's kind of insane, right? Like yeah, he doesn't kill an elder on screen until Shara. He doesn't you know, you don't see that much from him in the actual game. It's in the lore, but other monsters get that pass all the time. Like, you know, everybody's boy, Primordial Malzeno, his whole thing against Geismagorm and his triumph against that monster, that's all off screen and in guidebooks. And yet it's, hey, that's awesome. We take that as gospel, but you know, damn Nergigante though, he can't, he's not doing that. It's such a weird double standard, which I don't understand. Like, yes, I'm not criticizing the fact that it's doesn't happen in the story. They could have totally shown it, but how is the fact that they didn't show it in the gameplay when they usually don't show these things in the first place? Why is that all of a sudden a spear to use against the whole concept of the monster? It feels so lame and pointless.
to Nerg than the other hype beast monsters, but if there was one instance they probably should have leaned into that, it was maybe here. I think Iceborne and Ruiner do a lot of favours in that regard, and generally sell what they wanted Nerg to be a lot better. But in Base World, I don't necessarily disagree that they could have sold that better in the story. For a
That's
game
true.
that tells you about its monsters with environmental storytelling, and their interactions really well, they did boof it there with Nerg to an extent. It does communicate that he's stronger, but it doesn't really sell him as the Eater of Elders. But what about design-wise? And this is mixed for me. Nerg overall has the two traits you'd want if you hunted Elders.
Okay, so this is as well as design. We'll talk about his design. I'm fine with that. It's not really ecology, but we'll keep going into it. It has to do with
Immense
it.
strength, and a way to get around their damaging auras or elemental abilities they produce, which for Nerg is with regeneration. And whilst other than having Nerg
Can I just say that like my favorite version of Nergigante is the white spike version. Like I know it's cool that they change. They go from being small to big white spikes to black, but the white spike version, like I know those are like the softer spikes, but man, those are just so cool. Like the cool, they give them the coolest look.
be in some way portrayed by David Tennant, there's no real way you can communicate that something is going to regenerate. Whereas with strength, you sort of can. Overall though, I think showing Nerg's regenerative abilities in-game, and crucially before you fight him, overall did a good job of setting that up before his actual showdown. Nerg
Yeah.
has a mixed set of concept art as many flagships do. And whilst I think the final one they settled on is okay, it doesn't necessarily scream strength to look at it.
I don't think
or
this is
indeed
Nergi.
weight.
I think this is something
Nerg's
else.
moves do, but something like Sawyer Lee's Great Kinsbane or Hullbreaker,
Okay, yeah, it's from a
or
different
even
thing.
How to Train Your Dragon's Red Death, do convey weight, strength, and robustness, being like giant scaly bears. And I think a thicker design would suit the moveset too, as Nerg is often about using his own weight for momentum for a very physical fight. So make him look heavier really. One of his concept art pieces was essentially Winged Joe, and I do think Devil Joe, despite some of my criticisms, conveys strength
Oh, I remember
very well
this.
by being a giant bodybuilder
Yeah,
dinosaur.
yeah. Again, Nergi is
Strength,
essentially
in fairness, is a hard
Devil
thing to
Joe,
convey
Elder
well
Dragons.
in visual design, as some monsters and their creators can take too much influence from what makes a human look strong over what actually makes you strong, which
Yeah, 'cause
itself can often be hard to eyeball. As such,
I think
some
it's really
monsters
cool
are overly stereotypically burly to the
it
point
makes
of looking
sense
comical
that
or fat,
Nergigante
like Magna
is that
can
kind
with
of
their
thing.
overinflated limbs and chest.
It makes sense
I
that
think also a bigger focus
these
on the
design
mouth
things
over the
aren't
horns would fare
purpose.
better for the
What is
theme of
that?
consumption. If his role in the game is the Eater of Elders, then the eating organ should be very pronounced. Nerg doesn't really use his
I think
horns
that's
that
concept
much
art
in
I've seen
combat,
before.
and lore-wise either. Eating dragons would need a big strong jaw that should have been a priority, yet comes across as middling in his design. But of course, Nerg also has the major theme of death and rebirth, with his
This is true.
spines, which was apparently one theme of World. So how does he do as a flagship? And I'd say fairly well. Nerg is probably second to Gore in the amount of direct story involvement for a flagship. And overall, I've come to view that as perhaps the most important aspect of a
I'd say
flagship.
Malzeno's more.
How much of a rival
Although
they
he
feel
shows
like
up
to
more.
the player as their opposition in the story. I've seen it said that a flagship should embody the traits of the game they're in, and in this regard I'd say Rathalos and Lagiacrus succeed the best.
Facts.
One being a naturalized take on the traditional fantasy creature, in the game kickstarting the franchise, and the other being the most recognized embodiment of water combat. In fact, as of 5th gen, I much more feel that's the starter monster's job, to show you what that particular Monster Hunter game is about. Great Jagras has his interactions with the environment and other monsters, to tell you to explore this world and that the game is not just about hunting. And Great Azuchi gets completely folded by the wire bug with no way to counter it. Nerg doesn't carry the living, breathing world aspect that well, but both Fujioka and Tokuda wanted the theme of world to be death and rebirth. But I think it's fair to say that exploration of ecological environments inadvertently overpowered this theme for the best. Not that death and rebirth aren't a key part of certain areas like the Vale and Highlands combined. Fujioka has seemingly wanted this to be a core part of a flagship elder since DOS, where it was part of Kushala's molting, and more overtly in Shagaru. With Nerg taking this on much more in gameplay rather than cutscene, I'd personally say this is the best interpretation of said theme to date. Whether Fujioka's got this creative urge out of his system, or if he thinks it's a reliable theme for multiple elders, we'll just have to see in future. So is Nerg a good monster? And for the most part, yes. It took me a while to warm to Nerg, but overall he is my favourite 5th gen flagship. Not that it was much of a horse race, but still. I think Magnamalo did partially help that opinion by having a version of Nerg that was just done drastically worse in every single way. Not that it was much of a horse race, but still.
Hold on.
I think so. And for the most part, yes. It took me a while to warm to Nerg, but
I think between Nergigante and Malzeno, you can say the 5th gen has two heavy hitters.
Overall, he is my favourite 5th gen flagship. Not that it was much of a horse race, but still. I think Magnamalo did partially help that opinion by having a version of Nerg that was just done drastically worse in every single way, to make me much better appreciate Nerg for what he actually is. Fight-wise, both he and Ruiner are pretty good. Solid, simple, brute force back and forth between monster and hunter, but in a way that never feels too simple for an elder with a spike gimmick. Again, after Sunbreak, that's just hugely refreshing. A fight without beam wars and glowing orbs flying everywhere.
We love those.
I think Nerg is also what I'd want the best form of Espinas to be too. I've said before how Espinas has a fight that feels like it was made by committee. in that it's a competent but not hugely original mix of flying
Ooh.
wyvern moves with little
Yeah,
identity.
he's a Rathian clone.
And Nergs is the identity it should have, making yourself a giant wrecking ball, with the recognition your whole body can function as a weapon.
Well, I mean, let's be fair to Espinas. I mean, it was designed a long time ago, and it is essentially, what if Rathian was stronger and poison all over the body? So, like, it does fight like giant Rathian. Um, and even in Rise Break, it does kind of the same thing. But I still think it's the whole, if you touch it, you get poisoned is still pretty cool.
And that you're the less breakable component of you in the environment. Espinas has a strong personality and good lore that his generic fight
Sleepy
never
boy.
really leans into. Nerg's recklessness and him destroying his own nest around him make for a dramatic display of who he is. They'll probably always be mixed on the spikes. On one hand, they have a purpose, which
True.
is reproduction in
As
lore
many
and
don't.
stabbing you in fight, but maybe they can be a little excessive. Overall, is Nerg a good eater of elders, flagship and monster? And maybe not, yes and yes. Thanks for watching.
Okay. All right. Excellent, excellent, excellent. I'm trying to think. Maybe we could watch another video or go right into maybe some discussion. I think we can just go to another video real quick. Yeah, let's do that because I don't want to do another Nergigante specific stream about ecology because it's redundant. Let's see. Nergigante Ecology. Team Darkside. No Rage Gaming. Zenny. Where's oh look, there's me. Where's our guy? Where's Oceaniz? Okay. Maybe he doesn't have one. Okay. Strange. Let's see if he's in the Elders Recess documentary. I do want Oceanus is pretty popular. I want to see if he
Phoenix.
I want to see if he can do something about that. Let's see if we could find the Nergigante section. Okay, here we go. Okay.
This flying monster, an elder dragon itself, almost exclusively hunts and preys on other elder dragons, killing them not with some mysterious ability, but through pure physical strength and sheer unrelenting aggression. Be it its massive horns, its tails, or its claws, every inch of the Nergigante is a deadly weapon, ready to strike at any moment. It is by far one of the most aggressive creatures the guild has ever discovered, as it has almost never been observed outside of combat. The beast's most apparent feature, however, are the multiple spikes growing from its skin. These spikes, of which a Nergigante typically has around 1800, undergo a rapid and fascinating life cycle. They grow continuously and first emerge as soft, flexible white spines. In this state, they are fairly brittle and will easily break. As they remain in contact with air, however, they do not only grow but harden and stiffen, turning black in the process.
Hey.
In this state, they deflect most attacks and serve as the Nergigante's armor. They do, however, also get quite heavy and slow the beast down, and so the Nergigante has developed a trick to shed them all at once. Once a majority of its spikes have blackened, the Nergigante, almost definitely currently locked in combat, will jump high into the air and dive bomb its target. Usually, flying creatures avoid crashing as an attack strategy, as the hollow bones required for traditional flight are too fragile to survive collisions.
Yeah. What is it? If some context for this video, I haven't said it since like the beginning, but we were looking at some like Nergigante Ecology because there's a lot of like controversy with the monster. Oh, Nergigante, he's too overpowered. His ecology is doesn't make any sense. It's not fair that he's so much stronger than these other monsters. All that kind of stuff. So like, I'm looking at what people are saying about the monster, exploring some of his ecology to see like, I mean, he's much more well thought out than some people think, and I think it's kind of does a disservice to, the devs, who make the series, that they, at least at one point, they tried really hard to make these monsters fit these ecological, this ecological world that they've created, So, yeah, we just watched a video on from Unnatural History channel. I would definitely say recommend to go back and check out that portion of the video. It was really fun. But yeah, thanks for coming.
But once covered in its spiked armor, the Nergigante can use this for one devastating crash, both shedding all of its spikes and regaining its speed, and dealing catastrophic damage to its opponent. The weight of the spikes might also be what motivates some of the beast's aggression, since it needs to shed.
Yeah, you've got to, man. I think it's kind of underappreciated how Monster Hunter really put in a lot of work with its creature design, and I think over time it's kind of been taken for granted. So then they can kind of just make whatever now, and people go, "Oh man, that's so cool," and it doesn't make a lick of sense. So I think putting some respect on the good stuff is in order.
Off the extra weight. But one must ask, why? Why is the Nergigante so hell-bent on hunting other elder dragons specifically? The answer is the same as to why and how the Elder's Recess developed in the first place. Bioenergy. Nergigante exclusively feeds on bioenergy, and not just any. Only the purest energy will do, and so it relentlessly hunts elder dragons in order to absorb the pure energy they contain.
Yep.
It then uses this energy to reproduce, but not in the way the guild expected. As a large eukaryote, the Nergigante should, by all means, reproduce sexually, having two individuals combine two half sets of the DNA.
And I think what's so interesting about that is like Nergigante fills a role in the ecology that I talked a bit about this earlier, but it fills a role that wasn't really had before. Like elder dragons kind of sat outside of like the the natural food chain, so they added something in to kind of balance it out. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit when I get to like my discussion at the end, after I finish reacting to this.
Into a zygote, which then develops into a juvenile. But this is not the case. Instead, Nergigante are genderless and turn the bioenergy they absorb into fully fledged zygotes already within their body, each of them already having a full set of DNA identical to their singular parent. Those zygotes are then implanted into the spikes of the Nergigante. When those fertilized spikes break off and fall into a suitably protected spot, they slowly grow into a juvenile Nergigante, an identical clone of its parent.
Bro,
this
that's so cool.
asexual reproduction allows for continuous population of Nergigante to terrorize the elder dragons of the New World. And it has been suggested that this species emerged specifically to balance the ecosystem and keep the elder dragons, who migrate towards the Rotten Vale and the Recess, in check.
Oh, a perfect way to end that. Yeah, yeah. That's what I'm saying. That's the point of this monster. That's why it does the things it does. It is the one that keeps the balance for Elder Dragons. Cause like I said, Elder Dragons before, Nergigante, they kind of just existed doing their own thing. Like they were above the ecosystem. They could just affect the weather and do whatever. And that's cool. But when World came around and they wanted to really present a fleshed out ecosystem, you got to find a way to make those elder dragons part of the world. And this is how they did it. They gave them a natural enemy. Something that is going to threaten them and take them out. And that's why I think this monster is so, that's why it's so good. And some more about how I feel about it is I think Nergigante is really awesome because of the things that they mentioned already. But that concept reminds me a lot of how, if you've seen the MonsterVerse movies for Godzilla, it's how they presented Godzilla in there. You know, where he is it is a kind of a more natural interpretation of Godzilla where he's not evil, but he's like a he's a natural creature, but it's his job to take on the other monsters and keep them in check. It's the same kind of thing here, to keep the balance, where Nergigante is to be taking all these other elder dragons. And so I think that is really cool. And I know the monster gets a lot of hate because of that. I think thank you, Super Jordan, for for you on top. Yeah, never forget. For you, best Monster Hunter game, never forget that. All this world hype, gotta remember. But yeah. I feel like people kind of got offended. People kind of got offended that they made a flagship monster, an elder dragon, that is designed to, be at least ecologically superior to other ones. And, that's something I think. I mean, yeah, if you treat them as like characters, yeah, how come this one character gets to be super strong and beat up these other ones? Well, you're not really thinking about it in the way that they are, you know? At least not usually. Some of the modern stuff is a little more, they treat the monsters as characters. That's kind of what they do now, so they kind of have like character arcs and whatever and their villains and whatnot. But yeah, for Nergi, that's the idea. You had Devil Joe. His whole thing was he's bigger and stronger than most other monsters. Your Apex monsters, your Rathloses, your Laggies, your Diablos, and he is there to be something that can, take them down. And it's not just for the sake of strong. Like Devil Joe himself, he's very similar to Nergi. They're the two very similar concepts where he has restrictions placed upon him because Devil Joe is usually the strongest thing around, but he starves to death often. He needs to hunt. So Devil Joe's there keeping you know, he even goes overboard. He even goes overboard and just can just eat and eat and eat and eat. So there's a negative to him. But then when he dies, things can come back. Nergigante is the same way, where you have a monster that isn't super common. He's the one to kind of check other elder dragons, like because for Devil Joe was for the wyverns, Nergigante is for the elders. You know, he can be the one that he's not like sitting there just like, oh, I'm gonna just beat up everybody, but it's like he keeps it, he keeps it grounded. He keeps elder dragons from getting too high and mighty. And I just think that's pretty sick. Um, I didn't really see any other videos I think I want to watch. Because I think a natural history really did a deep dive, and this was kind of just more of what we already saw. Um, I would just say to end on the so like yeah, the Nergi hate honestly, and I guess there's two sides of the coin, right? There's two sides of the coin. Nergi is like you have two kinds of fans for him. You have the really, kind of just brain dead power scaly fans where, oh yeah, Nergigante is the main character. He's gonna beat up everybody, whatever. And I get that. That's kind of annoying. He's not taking out a Fatalis. He's not gonna do that. There's levels to this, and he doesn't just he doesn't just beat up every other monster for free. There's a reason why he does it. And yeah, to say, well, my monster can beat your monster. I mean, obviously you would get defensive about that, but what's the reason you're saying it? Are you thinking because you like him more, or because you're engaging with the actual, like, engaging with the actual world and fiction of the story of the universe? Like I said earlier with Nargacuga. Nargacuga is one of my favorite monsters. He gets bodied by almost every other flagship. And I gonna get mad and say, oh man, Brachydios is so broken with his slime and whatever. Nargacuga doesn't have a chance. I hate Bracky. It's like, well, no, like I'm not a big Bracky fan, but I'm not gonna sit here and dismiss the monster because he can beat one of my favorites. I think that's dumb. you know. And again, Nergigante himself, I don't even know if he's top 10 of my favorite monsters because like I usually like wyverns more than elder dragons. So like, I'm not sitting here saying, "Oh well, you guys should be more understanding of Nergigante, think better." Not because it's like offensive. It's like, well, I do want the ecology and whatever to be taken seriously. Don't undermine it just because you don't like how it is. That's like, I mean, I'm pretty open. I don't like Magnum Amalo. I don't like that monster. But I'm not sitting out here just dismissing its powers that they gave it. Yeah, they don't explain any of it. It's not really well explained or whatever. But I'm not going to say, well, he's not actually that strong. He can't actually fight Elder Dragons. Because he can. He clearly can. It's right there in the game. And it's right there in his lore. He is an Elder level monster. You can't change that. You can't downplay it because you don't like him. I don't do that. But, and I think, honestly, I really don't like him. So, same thing with like Arkveld. I don't like Arkveld either. Am I going to be mad that he beats Raydal? Well, I mean, he hard counters Raydal. He nullifies his lightning abilities, his strongest thing. So yeah, I'm not gonna be I like Raydal better, but I'm not gonna be mad that Arkveld beat him. Cause like, that's just how it works. That's how the logic works. So I don't understand why people can't keep the same energy for Nergigante. It's like they pretty well explain what the intention of this monster is and and the role that it has in their fictional world. So why are you gonna get mad that he's in that role? It just seems to be pointless to me. Anyway, I don't think there's any other videos that really need to be watched because these last two are pretty much covered everything, and my voice is kind of tired. So I'm gonna go ahead and call it here. I can probably do this for another monster down the road or another concept, react to something. But yeah. All right, I'm going to go ahead and if you're in the comments, let me know if you see anything you want to talk about. I'm open to talk about things. But all right, thanks for coming.